All right, we're live.
All right. We'll get some eyeballs on there.
Yeah. No one yet.
Cool thing about this is we can edit.
You can?
Well, now that I know, I can clip it up.
Oh. Oh, right.
Yeah. Ready?
It's going live.
I am. We are, man. We are live. I'm just waiting for
One
Matt.
person is looking right
One.
now.
Who is it?
Doesn't say. They'll have to like comment or something.
I
Two.
thought it says that. It doesn't say that when they pop up.
Usually they like wave or something. Comments will appear here.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Announce yourselves. Let's see who it is.
There's 3 eyeballs on there.
3 eyeballs. All right.
4.
That's enough.
Yeah.
All right, man. So
Tyler
here we are.
says, "Let's go."
Who is it?
Tyler Olsen.
Tyler Olsen, of course, man. How's it going, buddy? He's always on me. All right, guys. So we're back another week. So we were gonna try and hit some of the questions that we didn't get to last week, and just kind of go over some stuff, man. If you guys have more questions, just post. Let us know what you want to see. What do you want to do, Coach Matt? The man.
So one of the questions we had on the last post that we didn't get to was good question. How do we escape north-south control? So,
Man, terrible position. There's kind of like 2 ways. There's 2 things I'm looking out for. Obviously, I'm trying to catch the person on their way to north-south. I don't want to just get completely smothered in there. And my goal is to get my arms in the inside position of them as best I can. So what I mean by that, man, what kind of angle are we going to do this at? Let's try this. So let's come to this from side control first. So my first choice is always to try and catch them ahead of time. Wait a minute. So what I mean by inside position is this. So actually, he's gonna come around. I'm gonna have my arms on the inside of his arms. That's my biggest concern. I don't want to be stuck out or like one in, one out, because when I have an arm like this that he can wrap, I'm in trouble all the time. He's going to start pinning. He's going to start attacking that Kimura with the arm bar and stuff like that. So when I feel him coming around from side control, I want to try and establish that inside position, because it's hard for him to prevent that from happening at the beginning. Once he gets flat on top of me and he starts really controlling my arms and he gets the body together, man, then it's hard for me to do that. So he's going to go ahead, side control. I should be in my position anyway, but he comes around, right? And I'm going to come into my inside position, right? I could frame, or sometimes bigger, heavier guys, I want to go to the hips, right? Now he's going to have a lot of weight on me. He's going to be controlling. So like, it's hard for me to move here. As long as my arms are up here, he can't scoop, right? So I want to be pushing, but I can't just push him off me with strength. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to either hop or rock. I like rocking and push myself low. Once I get my arms straight, I'm going to roll, invert, and come up and just put a knee in and throw my other leg over. One more time, other side. So he's in the side control. I got my position. He comes around. I make sure I keep my elbows nice and tight so I don't get stuck with an overhand. Right inside, either a frame. I can do this from a frame too, because but usually he scoops over my arms because he doesn't like this, obviously, because I can keep the weight off him. So he goes there, right? So then I'm gonna go here, right on his hips. I can bounce, or I can roll. Either way, right? And then once I get extended enough, I'm going to roll and invert and bring my knee through and bring my leg around. Boom. And come in, take my guard. There's one situation that I have to be careful. And that's if the guy starts setting up what I used to call a monsoon choke. North-south choke. We call it a Monson choke after Jeff Monson back in the old days. That guy used to crush with it. So when he sets up his choke, he's going to start setting it up. When the guy wraps my head like this beforehand, this is bad news, right? Because now when he comes around, it's hard for me to get the inside position, and he can grab that choke, and I can't get separation. So if I'm in position, when he overwraps that, my hand is going to go right in here, right in his neck, right? So when he comes around and he starts trying to squeeze, I can make a frame of putting my hands together like this under his neck, right? And then when he goes to squeeze, I frame it off. I can frame it from the inside here, or I can rock right here to get him off. If he's super tight and I can't even get under his neck, a lot of times I'll just grab him right by the chin, right here. You know, I'll switch sides so you can see, but I'm going to go here, and then I just lift him straight up like that. So he starts wrapping, and I'm like, oh man, this is no good. So I go right to the neck, right? And then when he comes around, I either make the frame, be this way on the side, or if he's super tight and I can't get in, he's doing the same side on both sides. There we go. Yeah, see, now my hand is right here, I'm going to go right to here. Right, so now when he goes to try and choke, I can lift this up and get this hand in, or I can double it and just push him right off. Right, and again, then I'm going to get in the inside position and hit my inversion and try and come around. So those are the two that work well for me. The Monson choke is the one you really have to be careful for, because people that are good at that, man, they're good at that, and they're usually the big, strong type of guys that do that too. So you got to get a good frame, and you got to be able to frame their neck away. It's got to be super uncomfortable, because you don't want them to want to squeeze. When you push their head away like that, they can't take their squeezing pressure away. Anything to add?
Yeah, what do you, so let's take a look here. Can you just go down? Yeah. So, good escapes, right? And I'm just going to add to it. So when we go through, what I'm looking for when I'm attacking the position is I want to scoop those arms, right? So something very frustrating that Professor talked about is when people get those frames, right? So as I'm coming around, I'm trying to scoop here. It's not advantageous here. It's too hard for me, right? It's very easy for him to frame. So this is going to be your ideal position. This is what we want, is when you have those inside frames. But, you know, as we all know, it's not the easiest thing to get to, right? So probably the most common situation is going to be where I expose one of the arms, right? So I create this one arm in, one arm out situation. And so what we need to be aware of here is where I can start to isolate this elbow, right? We've gone over the Kimura trap series before, but from here, right, there's a couple different ways. We're not going to go into that right now, but I'm folding him up onto his side and I'm controlling. So I have that, you know, famous dorsal Kimura, dorsal fin Kimura going on here. Shout out to Downer, that I want to control. So I got to keep that elbow down. So just adding on to that position where we have the one in, one out, and then the doubles, right? So very common when I'm going for that Kimura position, right? So either or, doesn't matter. I'm scooping the elbow, right? Posting, chopping, folding. Sometimes he resists correctly by bringing the elbow down, right? If I don't have the other arm scooped, I'm gonna lose it, right? I gotta go to something else. However, if I have both arms scooped here, right, I can kind of play him against himself. So maybe I want the left side, so I'm gonna fake the right side to get him to go down because he has to recognize, and he gives me that left side right away. So from that position, so from that same position here, right? So it's not a good position. I don't like this. But what I need to understand is he's trying to keep pressure on me. The reason he came around here is he doesn't like what my legs are doing. But just like a frame escape from side control, is I want to get back right inside using my leg frames, my arm frames to create space, and I want to align my spine with his spine. So the one that's inside will do the exact same thing. I can grab the pants,
I can grab the belt, whatever, but I want to start keeping space. What I need to be aware of is this hand, right? My left hand. I can't just leave it out. If I leave it out or try to snake it around, he's going to grab a Kimura. I also need to be aware that he's going to try to turn me on my side. So I need to have that left be heavy, right? And I'm starting to push myself out. Now from here, it's that same thing where I'm gripping. I want to come in and grip him here tight as I can, keeping my left elbow tight, not opening it up. And then I do that same thing where I'm coming around, right? So I'm going to actually come to my right side. I want to go to my left side with that same idea. Maybe he's not giving me a whole lot of resistance, so I can switch right away and come in and feed in. But most of the time, it's not that easy, right? Especially against a good guy. So I got to go off that push-pull, right? That idea that I showed with the Kimuras earlier, where I'm going to play him against himself. So it's going to be very difficult for him to catch a Kimura when I'm pushing on his hip, because he wants to be able to bring his hips in and then eventually isolate my arm that's inside here, so my right arm. So I'm doing that same thing. Tight, right? Trying to keep that heavy as best I can, hiding my hand, creating that space, right? Controlling his right hip. So now from here, like I said, I'm going to play him against himself. So I'm going to rotate over, swing through. He's going to chase me a little bit, right? He wants to come around to his left side. As he starts to come around to his left side, I'm going to switch in and use that against him, right? So that's that one arm in, one arm out situation that's very common. It's that same thing. Now we'll take a look at that double. This is bad news, right? You messed up a lot here. It shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. So from here, it's that same idea where I want to hide as best I can, but something inevitable is going to happen. So I like that Professor showed with the choke, right? I call it the horror choke, where I'm just coming inside and framing on his neck, choking up, right? And then from there, trying to swim inside either to my frames or at the very least a one in, one arm out situation. So I have something to push against, right? So again, from here, using that where he's tight, he's gripping on, I'm creating that space, coming inside, coming up. Something that I think is very popular. It happens a lot, right? I tend to see it a lot on YouTube. I've been watching a lot of YouTube lately. Is people just bring their feet up right in front. I don't know if it's because of I have this mentality or I roll with people who have this mentality, but I feel like anytime somebody puts their foot in my face, right, and you'll see this here, his professor's going to take my foot home with him, right? So anytime I'm here, right, let's do frames. So it's very common where people pop up and they put the hands in front of the face, right? Boom, right there, all the time. That happens all the time. So I want to get away from, or at least discourage people from just coming straight in here, right? You notice when Professor did this, is he came off to his side. So yes, he threw that scissor guard in, but it was as he's coming around off to the side, and I'm hiding my feet here. It's very hard for him to do any type of foot lock in this situation. And then we get into there where I'm building my leg frames. My right leg, I can swim it back inside here, or swim it over top, either or, pushing on, while I create my arm frames, creating that space, and aligning ourselves. Awesome. How we doing, Shehan?
I know there's one
Great.
more that people do. I don't do them because I'm not a yoga master. But there's the one where the people, they do the backflip and they take your back.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. I don't know.
Matt's a yoga master.
Can you do that?
Let's see if we got
Matt does hot yogas.
So,
We're two big guys here that are not going to backflip onto somebody's back.
so from here, what I'm looking for is I'm looking to push on the belt. I like this one. This is no-gi applicable as well. You're just pushing on the hips. And so it's when he's tight. So I have the double unders already. I'm pushing him off to create space. Very important that I'm pushing him off to create space. I feel like it works better, like Professor said, with smaller, bendier people. But you know, I've hit it a couple times in my time here. So let's see if we can get her done. So from here, right, I like to grab onto the belt and pushing. And I'm kind of picking a side here. A lot of times, right, he'll have his head blocking one side. He'll have his head down. But in this case, he has it down the middle. That's fair. right? So from here, all I'm doing is I'm switching my head to the side, and I'm snaking my leg back through, right? And from here, I'm gonna pop out, throw my hooks in. Anytime I throw my hooks in, I don't like to be in this position, so I automatically throw at least one underhook, right? So I can have that good backpack position. Again, all I'm doing is I'm just isolating one side. So I push back, I kind of pick a side. So I'm gonna go to my right side, and I do that same thing, where instead of bringing my knee in, right, I'm gonna take advantage of the space between his knee and his elbow that I just created. And I'm gonna swing my foot in, hook inside, come up over top, hook my other one inside, and then come back.
I remember when I was coming up, back in the old days, a lot of people used to do this to me, especially smaller people, the really Gumby types, right? So going out, and I came up with this little thing that stopped them. Go down.
Here we go.
So we're just gonna follow. We're just gonna take this wherever it leads. All right. So I've been caught with that several times. So I start to, after you, just like anything, once you've been caught by something a couple of times, you tend to recognize it coming before, and you start seeing it come. So when people started doing this to me, as soon as people started getting long on my hips, right, I started recognizing that this was a thing that was going to happen. So the downside with him having both of his hands on my hips is nothing is controlling my hands, right? So as soon as, even before he got to fully extended, so as soon as like he started pushing me away, I know for him to do this, his body needs to, his pelvis needs to roll up onto his ribs, and he wants to do a backward roll. Right, so what I want to do is I'm going to post my head in his belt knot and keep him flat and not let his pelvis roll up. So what happens here, and like what he was doing was rocking back and forth, but with my hands being free, I go right to the hips, or I'll control the pants here, right? So I feel him doing it, I come up and I put my belt right here. Sometimes I'll even just goof around and stay right here, and the guy's going to try and do it, right? So I'll go here, right? Even without my hands, he tries to do it now. It's hard. Right? And then I come up right here. And I have to make sure, because now we're kind of very long, so I gotta make sure I don't get knocked over this way. But I'm here, right? He's doing his thing. I feel him do that grip, I come up and I drive right into his abdomen right here to keep him from being able to curl, right? And if I need to, a particularly Gumby type of person will still fold themselves in half and get their legs in. I'll have to get on their hips and drive them off. So right here should be pretty, and then I'll just hang out there, because it's particularly tiring for the bottom guy to force that position. So I'll just hang out there for as many seconds or minutes as it takes for him to give up. And then he'll flatten out, and then I'll drop back down and continue my north-south attack. Things like that you only develop after you've been suckered with it a couple of times, man, for sure. I hate when people do that. What else, man? Any questions coming in so far?
Not yet. No.
Come on, guys. What do you want to see?
Oh,
What's next on the list?
We got Brado choke from side control, and then high guard attacks.
High guard.
did you see?
Brado chokes,
Brado?
high guard attacks, and then Brennan asked to see the collar drag, so I thought you could go over the collar drag variations from the
From
card.
college sleeve? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You want to do that first?
Yeah.
All right. So we're looking at college sleeve guard. Okay. So we'll start off right here. Actually, I probably this. So actually, the first point I want to make is whenever I'm doing an open guard type situation, I want to make sure that people understand that I am not opening my guard just to do open guard. If I have a closed guard, this is actually something that I like to talk about a little bit, because a lot of people, and this is like one of my pet peeves, they'll get a closed guard and they'll immediately go into open guard, right? Voluntarily. And because they feel maybe that's their best game or whatever, but I'm of the opinion that you want to make someone fight through all of your guards, not just the guard that you want to do, right? So I like to compare it to like an old medieval castle. Like they had the rampart, the little fort wall, the moat, the drawbridge, the walls. There was probably a secondary wall before the keep. I mean, there's all these defenses that somebody has to fight through. So when I have a solid closed guard set up on someone, and then I just open my guard and go right to spider, it's like I just put the drawbridge down over everything and let them march right up to the last wall. You know, so like, why just give them that opportunity? Maybe that is your best guard, but make them fight their way there first, you know? They'll tire out, they'll be in a worse position. Just start clean like that. I never thought that was a good idea. So when I do this example, understand that I am going to do my closed guard game, whatever it is first, and then when I feel like the guard is going to be opened, I will open. All right, but I'm going to make Matt fight his way through my closed guard first. But to save time, we'll just open. All right. So we're talking about the collar sleeve guard. Right. So I have my hook grips. Right. I'm going to open, come inside. Right. Sit up, grab the collar. I could have the collar already. It doesn't matter. I'm on my elbow, both feet on the hips, collar, sleeve. Right. So the way this collar drag works, it's kind of in conjunction with my side sweep, right? Because I'm always going to be looking for my side sweep first, right? I love this position. I'm very mobile. I can come up, I can move back, I can pull him, I can straighten him out. So if you notice, his arm is long right here, right? So here, I'm going to try my side sweep first. So I basically am just going to put the foot on the hip, pull him back so I get his hip up over his knee, kick it out, take him over, right? Boom. It's a great sweep, works great. That's kind of like the foundational move. That's the move. The foundational move is the move that we initiate to get any kind of reaction.
Once you're done with this, I have like a question.
All right, cool. All right, so we're
Pertaining to this or what?
No.
All right. So I'm starting off here, right? So now the reaction happens that he knows he's susceptible this way. So what he does is he pulls his elbow back and he leans that way because he doesn't want to go this way. When I feel that happen, I just change the direction. So I'm going to be here. I move my elbow out a little bit. I scoot across so I'm a little bit more upright. Instead of putting the foot to here, I put the foot to here. With his arm pulled in because he's protecting the elbow because also he's defending against the triangle omoplata. So he's going to pull that elbow in. And then when I make the switch, it's easy for me to throw the arm across the body. And I drag it. They just come up to the back. It's hard to demonstrate. It's hard to explain this without explaining the whole sequence because they all play off each other. This is kind of like in the middle, but we're gonna start off here.
Yeah, do you want to do it on the other side too?
Collar, sleeve, open up my guard, boom, swing inside, come up, right? Already he's pulling his arm in. He doesn't want to go that way. So I could be here. I could switch, be here. When I kick this too, I'm not just kicking him straight. I want to open it wide, open it, right? As I throw him by. Then I'll come up onto the back, or if he's really on it, he'll roll really quick and I'll wind up on the top of half guard. It's from the same thing. Arm drag variation, same thing. For me, it's preference. I'm here, right? Again, too, remember, I'm looking for that sweep, or I'm looking for the triangle omoplata, so he's going to keep his elbow in, so I can't get this leg underneath that leg, right? Sometimes the guy will pull in way deep and get low. Yeah, and he's in, and sometimes they just hang out here, you know? So what I'm going to do here is, it's the same idea as the collar drag, but instead, I'm going to take this hand, and I'm going to come to the collar, come to the elbow, while I punch this hand to the floor, boom, right? Now I can do the same thing, switch my feet, 1, 2, and then pull them to the side. Like I like to do a rear naked choke grip here on this arm, because sometimes bigger, strong guy, they're like pull it, try and get straight on, they're like this, right? So I'll go here, 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 and then I'll just jump to the side, throw them around, and then come up.
Maybe you want to change angles, yeah.
Right?
Come this way.
In my position, he pulls his elbow in to defend against the triangle omoplata, right? Again, I'm sitting up, punch, 1, lock it up, 2. I can kick here, or I can just come across here. Either way, I like to kick. I used to do both. The collar drag kind of just replaced both. I do collar drag almost exclusively now. Did we skip something? What did we do? Do you have a question? What was the question?
So the question was from Rob, but it's not pertaining to this. So if you want to finish it up, and then I can get to that.
Yeah, so I like this. I do it a little bit differently, and I think it's just a preference thing. It's not a mechanical thing. It's not a different technique. It's just a little bit different as far as the foot placement, and it's how I do it on the second one. And so the way that I talk about this is it's that resistance where they start to pull back, right? So I want to go for that side sweep. You know, as a general rule, anytime we're on the knees, right, my opponent's on the knees, I want to attack upper body attacks. When they start to stand up, right, if they're still leaning forward, I do upper body attacks. But most of the time when they stand up, it's because they want to avoid those upper body attacks. So I do a split squat or regular, I start attacking the legs, right? So keep that in mind here, is that we want to attack upper body attacks, or we want to side sweep, get on top. But the person's pulling back, they're taking away all those things, right? And they're setting themselves up for a sweep. And so that's what's happening here. So what I'm doing is, that same side, is I grab the collar, right? And so I don't like to come up on the elbow, right? Again, it's just a preference. It's not right or wrong. It's just a preference if you want to come up on the elbow or not. So I'll play my collar and sleeve down, looking for those upper body attacks. And when I feel him really pulling back, like I can't separate that elbow, because very common, like Professor said, when people start to attack the triangle, you know, you get triangle or omoplata like 100 times. You're like, all right, I'm sick of this. I don't want that anymore. And you attach your elbow to your hip. So from there, I feel him pulling back or maybe sitting low. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit up on that elbow and I bail on that arm just a little bit, right? So I'm not pulling it back because he's pulling it in. And what I'm going to do is as I come up on that elbow, now I'm on that elbow, I'm going to switch my feet. I push that hand in the center, but most likely it's already there because he's pulling back, and I'm going to prop on my hand. Now I'm going to lift my hips up. I'm going to pull him towards me. It's violent. Collar drags are violent, whether it's standing. You're pulling hard because you want to get him out of position so you can reset, right? So from here, I switch and pull him down. And that's the idea that we're working on here. So from that position, like I said, I'm setting up, right? I'm going for my other things, but it's not working. And so, you know, to add on to what Professor was talking about, I had a phrase I like to talk about is, he doesn't open my guard, I open my guard, right? Because if he opens my guard, now I'm defensive, right? And that takes away the magic of the closed guard. The closed guard is an attacking or aggressive, or both, and or aggressive position, right? So I start to feel my guard opening. I don't want to be on the defensive. I want to be aggressive. So I can pop open, right? Start to attack, start to swing out, you know, work that omoplata triangle combination. But I start to feel that where he's pulling that arm back, right? And maybe he's sitting low. I can always sit up for a loop choke here too, right? Keep that in mind, right? Maybe that's something we go over. But from here, I feel him really pulling me back. So I can start to scoot out here to try to get that stomp sweep that I call it. That was the one Professor was doing.
You guys want to angle, yeah?
Yeah, but from here, now what I'm going to do is his hand's already in the inside, right? And he's already pulling back, right? So I have that. I need that reaction, because if he's just hanging out, as soon as I let go, he's going to go to pass. So I need that split second where he needs to come back to me after pulling back before, right? So I really have him pulling back. I let go, come through, out, and now I'm up, right? Attacking, coming back, and attacking that back. I also really, you know, I don't know, I haven't tried it, but I really like that rear naked choke option on the arm. You know, it's probably the third or fourth time you've demoed that on me. It's super powerful as far as locking somebody in and dragging them down.
Yeah, like that's a relatively new addition. I've only been doing that for a couple of years, and it's because bigger, stronger people go down. It's really hard. Well, for me, I had a hard time. You're down. I had a hard time arm dragging people. So when you do a classic arm drag, where you reach through like this and you pull, I've had a really hard time with big, strong guys being able to get this arm around and winding up hitting. And I know that a lot of people have that problem. And so I wrapped that rear naked choke grip and put the whole upper arm just pinned right up against my chest, and I use my whole body to throw their arm by, and it just makes it easier. So it's not as exciting looking, I guess, but it's super tight, and then I can just wrap the back and I can come right up. Just works well for me.
Skylar says hello from Missouri.
Hey, what's up?
All right, so are you guys done with this part?
I think so.
For now? For
Yes.
now? Okay. So we have two questions. The first one's from Rob. How has your game changed as you've gotten older? Are there techniques that you never used to use that you have come back to later?
Well, yeah, man. I think that's I think that's your jiu-jitsu life cycle for anybody anyway. You know, like I started training. Well, I've been a martial artist my whole life. I started training martial arts when I was a teenager in the 1980s. And when I started training jiu-jitsu in like 99, I think, I was already aware of what jiu-jitsu was. I watched UFC 1 like in 93. So I was aware of the Gracies. I was aware of what Brazilian jiu-jitsu was. Just in 1993, there was nowhere to train. And I was living in Europe at the time, which made it even worse. And you know, it's pre-internet, of course. So just trying to find anything on like VHS tape or find anybody in the military that knew anything, you know, over those years. And then I wound up getting out of the Army in 98 and moved to Boulder, Colorado in 98, where Amal Easton had just moved back from Brazil and opened up his academy. And around 99, I started training with him. They were open for about a year at the time, I think I started training. And at that time, I was already training and competing in boxing and kickboxing for like 15 years already. So I had like a really good striking background. And I was actively boxing at the time when I started training jiu-jitsu, actually. And when I started training jiu-jitsu, it was like a whole nother world, man. It was like crazy. And I thought that I had a good idea of what was going on because from 93 to 99, I was trying to like teach myself. And like I thought, I was one of those guys who thought they were good because you was learning yourself. And man, I walked into that gym and it was like a whole nother world. And as soon as I did it, I was like, man, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But as I got older, so like I was 30 when I started training jiu-jitsu. So I wasn't never going to be world champion, you know, as a 20-year-old for sure. But I was still fit and in shape, you know, and was competing a lot back then. So as I've gotten older, I think that the most common thing is just you kind of reestablish the basics. You just reinvent the basics basically. I always like to learn new things. I've learned so much since I've been here in Fargo with all of the students here and guys have, you know, my coaches now they've taken the ball and they run with it. They do stuff so much better than I do. And I'm always learning stuff from them. They keep up with the new stuff that's happening a lot better than I do. And yeah, as I've gotten older, I have to reinvent the basics, but especially 3 years ago, for anybody who doesn't know, 3 years ago I had a emergency aortic aneurysm. I had an open heart surgery where my artery basically exploded. I had to have an artificial artery put in. So big open heart, terrible surgery to recover from. So since that has happened for the last 3 years, it's been a complete reinvention of jiu-jitsu again because I'm a big, strong guy, always had a real big, strong guy kind of game, super aggressive. And now I can't put that kind of energy into training like on a regular basis. So I have to be able to do things technically correct, the way they've always should have been done anyway, to be honest with you. So like really learning to let technique take the place of the strength and be able to move more efficiently. And you know, I get tired faster now, so you have to move more efficiently. And you know, all those things add up to just being more efficient with your jiu-jitsu. And the funny thing about it is it teaches you how to do it the way it always should have been, I guess. You know, like there's an old saying, I think Hicks and Gracie said, he's like, jiu-jitsu is perfect, it's people that are flawed, right? So people will make those mistakes, but as they learn them, the true spirit of the jiu-jitsu comes out eventually. And I feel like, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm the best I've ever been right now, as far as knowledge-wise and technique-wise. And it's just strange. I think that like everybody will always feel like that as they progress, you know? It's cool. Good question. Really good question. I could probably talk an hour about it.
So, Coach, do you have anything to add, Coach Matt?
What is Ben asking? Can we see what Professor George, can you ask him to clarify that?
Can we see what Professor Joe
Clarify
just
what?
described?
Can we see what he described?
I think he's talking about the.
Oh, the rear naked choke grip on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of confused there too.
So let's go a little slow motion here. Let's just do it. So traditionally, arm drag would be something along the lines of this. The way I do it from here is classically I would always punch the hand to his crotch and go here, and like I would drop 1 foot in the middle, 1 foot on the outside, post, and then take. But for me, maybe I'm just weak at doing it, but like I find that there's too much slack here and the guy can wrap around. It catches me a lot like that. So what I'll do is, and also sometimes I have a hard time if the guy's got a good pants grip. A lot of times I can't get this grip off, right? This is the one that makes it, because if I try and drag now, he's too close to getting around the body. Make sense? So what I'll do here is I'm in my position still. I'll try and get the hook, but when I get this, I'll switch my foot position, but I'll bring my body up to it, even if he holds on. And well, actually, you don't have to hold on, because if he does hold on, it's a really bad shoulder torque, which is another reason why it works awesome. And I put my body right up against it, and I'll lock a rear naked choke just on his bicep, like I'm gonna lock his arm. So even if he tries to wrap around my body now, it's hard, right? And then I'll just do everything the same. I'll scoot to the side. Actually, I'll do this before I scoot to the side. But then I'll just throw him to the floor, boom, and then come up, and then slide out. So it's everything's the same. I just changed that grip, but I have to keep it really tight and pull his arm to my chest. All right, because if I'm slack, he'll just snake it around my body like he normally would. Right? Does that answer the question?
That's what he was asking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, it's a great grip. Works good.
So Drew asked earlier, like if someone has the Kimura grip, like how can you kind of counter that? So Tyler,
in the Kimura.
if someone has the grip, like the Kimura grip, and then Tyler added, how do you strip that grip while keeping your shoulder on the mat?
Man, I got a good trick that Joey Mack showed me, another one of my students, right? Like how he fights the grip. You ever try Kimura, Joey Mack?
Try Kimura-ing him? No. He's tried Kimura-ing me.
He's
been successful.
He's very frustrating because like, I don't even know how to remember this, I'm limited one. But, so you got the Kimura? Yeah, I got a change here. Right? So what he would do is he would take this hand right here and he would just palm this grip off. Right? Just palm that grip off and kind of reestablish this, right? And then just take it down. Right? So every time you try and lock it up, you just palm that grip off. Right? And pull his arm out.
Oh.
Right? Try and hold it tight. So it comes up here, boom.
Yeah, piece of snow.
Yeah, I do that a lot now. Classic answer is don't be in it. You gotta practice not getting Kimura. That's the trick, man.
So, yeah, that's a hard one, right? So there's kind of the variances within there, but I would say anytime you're looking at like how do I get out of the Kimura, how do I get out of the triangle, you got to back up a little bit, and this is more like from a problem-solving standpoint. But what I encourage you advanced students to start doing is saying, okay, what's he trying to do, right? So Professor George does a Kimura on me. Right, from the side, right? So we can all argue that, man, I messed up a long time ago. This shouldn't have happened, right? But I also understand, right? This is for demonstration purposes, but he's going to bring the leg over in just a second. So from here, right, a lot of bad things happened. I should have kept my shoulder on the ground. I should have kept my elbow on the ground, right? But from here, what I want to do is I can't let him get my hand behind my back, right? The thing to do now is just tap and live to fight another day. It's very dangerous on the shoulder, right? So from here, right, I would like to grab something. So I grab my belt. Ideally, I'd like to grab high on the collar. It makes it very hard for him to break. If I'm low, right, it's much easier. Not impossible, right, but much easier. But at the same time, I gotta buy myself some time. So let's talk about the attacker here. So he wants to bring that knee over, right? Professor's right leg, he wants to bring that over top so he can isolate my body, right? Now from here, he wants to break, so he's gonna break towards his right shoulder,
right? Pull up so I can't grab anything, and around, right? Get that. So I understand that's what's happening. So I reach in here, right? So what I need to be able to do is I need to be able to clear this. I shouldn't have let this happen. So anytime I can swim inside, right, and start to control this and get my head out, right? That was a bad example where I let him come over. But anytime I feel him stepping over, I shouldn't allow that, right? I shouldn't allow him to step over my biceps. Here, he still thinks he's okay, even though he's not over my biceps. But I'm on the inside. Now I can control whatever kind of grip I can get, and I can start to pull my head from the outside. Now from here, I love that Joey Mack counter. Turn a little bit.
No, this one.
So I love that where we start to push on the hands, right? I've also seen where we feed inside and start to slice. But I think the key here is with the Kimura, and I got this from Joey Mack as well. Shout out to Joey Mack down in Colorado, is fighting the hands, right? So it's very difficult, especially a guy like Drew, right? When he latches onto you like this, I'm not just gonna weasel my elbow out. I gotta get that elbow back to the ground, but I need to fight those grips so I can create space and get back, all right? That's what I like to do. Another one from here. All right, going back to our north-south escapes, right? Is same thing, grabbing my collar now, right? Grabbing the outside of those pants, and I want to get that left elbow to the floor, right? So I'm here, right? Swinging around and getting that elbow out as best I can. You know, that's more of a secondary. I think fighting the hands is your primary.
Right away attacking those hands, breaking them off, because bad things are about to happen.
Man, that's a good, I like the point you made about controlling the pants. Go back now. Because for me, for my typical combination, like if I'm attacking the Kimura, right, I want to get over that head as fast as I can, right? Because I want to keep him on his side, but just controlling his head isn't enough to control his body, right? If he grabs the high grip, if he's low, if he grabs the belt or his pants, which is what most people do, my grip back. If he grabs the belt or the pants, I very rarely have a hard time breaking that grip off. The only grip that I really ever have a hard time with is when they grab high on the collar. But that's the key, because when they grab high, they're exposing their middle, and if he grabs high, I'm not gonna bother messing with it. That's when I'm gonna turn to the armbar, right? But with him controlling the inside of my pants like that, it makes the armbar a little sketchy now, because now I don't have the control to go over his head. So if I'm here, even that grip right there, and his body's exposed, now when I come up to go for it, he can keep me from getting over his head. Right? That's a good point to make on that. I like that.
Do you guys want to answer these questions or go through yours?
What do I got?
Cody says, for both of you, what's the hardest, toughest guard to learn?
I would say...
Kind of depends.
I would say any open guard. I would say any open guard, for the sole reason that because when you have, because all open guards are dynamic attacking guards, and you have to know your options and be able to, and the flowing between the actual options is the control. So where you have a closed guard, I can be in a closed guard and I can just wrap my legs around a person and slow everything down as slow as I want. I could be clueless and fumbling around, but I can still have them wrapped in between my legs and there wouldn't be nobody, they wouldn't be going anywhere. So it's just a matter of how it can be learned, you know, or how it can be practiced. Because closed guard can be practiced very slowly because, like I said, I got control with my legs and I can fumble around. I have all the time in the world. So with the open guard, I have to already kind of know what I'm doing. So there's a big jump from the actual learning of the step-by-step of it to actually being able to train it live. And the step that a lot of people miss is flow drills. A lot of people go from the step-by-step and then they think they know the steps, and then they try and do it live, but that's a really big jump. It's like going from nibbles to trying to stick the whole chicken in your mouth at one time. You know, like you got to have a middle, like some kind of middle practice, and that's where having a really good partner that's going to give you really specific reactions, so you can practice going from through the transitions at a slower speed without worrying about getting passed and crushed all the time. Because if you're scared of getting passed, which everybody is when they first learn an open guard, because you still don't know what you're doing really, like you're just worried you're gonna get passed and you're gonna be rushing and you're gonna be trying to do everything super fast and wrong, and it's just gonna be terrible. So like after you go through the step-by-step process of learning the steps, then you got to practice the flow style so you can practice putting the steps together at a reasonable pace. And you really need a good partner for that. And that's where learning how to be a good partner at the beginning levels really comes in handy, because without a good partner and a good training environment, that step gets skipped, and a lot of that lesson is lost.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that. Anytime you do an open guard, right? And so you got to keep in mind that different guards for different people, and so you gotta try stuff. But it sucks because you start out as a white belt, and probably that first 6 months it feels like you're drowning, right? Because you don't know anything. And then as you start to get through that first 6 months, you pick up a few things, you become a blue belt. All right, you got your 3 things that you're really good at. Like Shehan, he can probably knee slice just about anybody's guard in here, right? Despite the fact that he never wears his belt. But he's got a really good knee slice, right? And so, if I came up to him as a coach and I said, hey man, cool knee slice, but can you long step? Or can you do a over-under pass? I bet he gives it one honest attempt in training, and then he doesn't do it anymore because he's going to fail, right? And that's uncomfortable.
Because he's too worried about winning.
He's too worried about winning. It's the ego. Got to get rid of the ego. But, like Professor's talking about is where, in the training room, we take out this winning and losing. A lot of times when we're doing rounds on Sundays or in class even, it's this idea of winning. We got to win all the time, and I get that. But when we make it about flowing and an objective where, okay, I'm going to try to umapla to you, right? And we go through and we umapla, we're just working that and understanding the transitions. And, another shameless plug here, but Coach Bailey, we did a bunch of guard retention. I think it was last year. And it's something where it's so important, looking back. I think Rob asked the question. I don't remember exactly what it was, but looking back, like something that I should have done more of is I should have spent more time as a white, blue, purple belt on guard and guard retention. Just keeping a guard and understanding that, because it's very easy to lose a position for you to kind of get out of it. But if you're able to keep it and you understand very basic positioning, how to control somebody, it's very easy to keep them in your spider web and then get back to your attacks. So guard retention stuff is very important to keep that, but also that flow rolling that Professor was talking about. Just getting a good partner, having them give you resistance, asking them to do certain things. Hey, whenever I train, Shehan does this thing to me and I don't like it. So can we problem solve that? And we do that all the time, we have small group sessions where we talk about, Drew, hey, Drew's doing this to everybody. Let's figure this out. Well, Drew's not here. Just little fun stuff that we all do. But then that spreads like wildfire, and that comes from that flow rolling stuff. So they used to do that about me too. They used to talk about me all the time. They still do.
All right. Daniela says, in your opinion, when is the best time to abandon a move?
Abandon learning a move, or
like let's say you're caught. Like I think what she means is like if you're trying to do something like an offensive move, when is the best time to stop and change to something else? Is what I'm assuming.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of levels to that question. There's it could be that the person is defending the correct way, and you're not picking up on the change that you need to transition to. It could be that you're just not that good at the move yet, and you're messing something up. That's one of those things that we almost need to sit down and see what's happening and see what the situation is. Because if you're in a position to where, like, if I'm trying to do, let's go back to that open guard for a second, right? And I'm in my collar sleeve, right? I have the feet on the hips and everything's going, and man, I have it dead set in my mind. I want to do the side sweep, right? And I want to do the side sweep, but his elbow's in and he's leaning back, right? He's leaning that way, and I'm not going to get him this way. He's sitting back, because remember when I mentioned we want to get his hips up over his knee? Ooh, get old. And but he's hanging back and low, his elbow is in. I don't have a push, and I'm struggling so right now this isn't the right option. It's not what he's asking for, right? So I'm trying to force the wrong move in the wrong situation, right? So abandoning the move would be the right choice. I would have to transition to the next option. But sometimes you have to just look and see what is he asking for. He's asking me to do something to him. If I don't know what it is, I'm lost, right? He's pulling back, he's low, he's giving me the wide base that way, so he wants me to switch to the collar drag. He's gonna go easy. I like to use the example I like to use the guideline that if I'm working really hard and sweating and really trying to do this thing, then it's not the right answer. I'm doing the wrong move. For me, especially at this point in my life, if I'm butting up against the wall too hard, I'm not gonna fight too hard. I like to say I do very lazy jiu-jitsu. If I hit the wall or if it takes any kind of effort, I'm probably gonna switch to something else because it's probably not the right move anyway, right? So now the question is, can you recognize what you should be doing, right? Do you recognize that transition? Maybe that's a hole in your game. Another thing, when I talk about building systems, when we teach here, we try and build everything systematically. We want systems-oriented skills from every position. So if I have a 4, 5, 6 move system that I like to run from a particular situation, we'll start looking at that, and we'll find a move for it, or we'll come up with something. You know, maybe it's something that you don't know yet. You know, that's happening.
So to add on to that, you know, a general advice I would give for newer students is, if I'm controlling the person, and I'll give you an example here, but if I'm controlling the person, most of the time it comes down to their hips. So am I controlling their hips or am I not controlling their hips, right? And so
Let's see. Oh, we're good. We're back.
We're back.
We're back. Okay, we're back.
a little broadcast interruption there, but what we're talking about is whether or not I have control of my partner, right? So we'll give you a couple good examples of that. And so I would say, as a new student, when I feel like I'm no longer controlling my partner, right, then I'm going to let go of that, right? So simple example here, right, is professor puts me in a guillotine, right? From the guard? Yep.
So here, right, he puts me in a guillotine, right? He's controlling me. Here, he throws this over top, right? He's controlling my hips. It's very hard for me to move around. Now, let's say, for example, so from here, he has me, right? So let's say this leg is lazy, and I'm able to jump to the other side. I see this a lot, very common in white belts, where they get into this guillotine headlock situation, and they think they're choking me. And really all you're doing is pissing me off, right? And I'm just waiting for your arms to burn out, and then I'm gonna hurt you, right? No, I'm just kidding. But it's not doing anything to me. It's just putting a tremendous amount of pressure on my jawline, but it's not a blood choke, right? So from here, I can either wait out, or commonly from our self-defense program, when we kind of get into these positions, as I start to rotate around, and I slide into that Kimura, right? Same thing. From an armbar, professor puts me in an armbar. So from here, right, he has control of me, right? Let's say he extends back, right? He sits back all the way, and maybe I have some, I'm not ready to tap yet, right? And so I'm doing this, I'm wiggling around. He still has control of my body, right? He just needs to figure out exactly where to get a little bit more space. So maybe instead of going straight down, he changes off to one direction and breaks off one of his hip bones instead. But ultimately, he has control of my body. Now from here, let's say I dump down, right, and I start to rotate. It would not be advantageous for him to hold on to the armbar, right? He's lost control of my body. I hit the hitchhiker escape, and I'm starting to come up. So as I start to come up, he needs to be ready to defend, right? And start working his guard retention, framing off. I say this a lot in class, and I know Coach Rob does as well, and Coach Kelsey is in the fundamentals class. We talked about the north-south choke, or the north-south escape earlier, and we have to talk about worst-case scenario, but really the answer is that you should have never gotten there in the first place, because the time to escape north-south position is not when you're in north-south position, it's much earlier, right? So starting when somebody passes my knees, right? So an expression I use for open guard is I pretend like my knees are two headlights on a car, right? So when someone's in my headlights, I'm playing guard. When somebody's outside my headlights, I'm retaining guard, or I'm preparing to escape from a side control position, right? So same thing there is, as soon as he starts coming around my knees, he's outside my headlights,
I'm immediately framing, not letting him grab my head, not letting him make chest-to-chest contact. That's where you escape the north-south position. Not once the person's already in the position. Because once the person's already in the position, right, chances are they're settled in place. And, you know, I can understand from a competitive standpoint where we got to score points, or maybe there's 30 seconds left, there's a medal on the line, and I want to win, so I got to be able to get out. Or from a survival standpoint, self-defense standpoint, that's not the time to fight. The time is to keep yourself safe. Something Professor George always used to say, he probably still says it, is it's not about winning, it's about not losing, right? And so a lot of times in those situations, you know, it's a bad situation. It's not about, okay, how can I win from here? How can I not lose? Let's not lose first. So keeping ourselves safe, dialed in, right? And waiting for that opportunity for my partner to move. Because a lot of times, especially from that north-south position, I play that a lot. I'm bearing down into my partner, right? I'm pushing into them. This is what we talked about in the last live feed, is how to give good top pressure, right? Pulling in as I'm pushing down. You're not going to escape. That's just the way it is, right? But when I start to move and I relieve pressure, there's absolutely an opportunity to escape, right? That's the whole thing there, is I get up to move to a different position. You have that short window, and that's when you go to escape. So it's not in the moment, it's when the person's transitioning either to the position or away from the position into something else.
I just like to tack one last thing on there. What you talked about a minute ago or so, talking about like, you know, knowing how far you can get into a position, right? One of the things you want to do, and like we always talk about training safe, and always conceding the position, right? Which is a great idea, and it's a great strategy to have. But if you want to be a competitor, especially, I would say definitely by the time you reach purple belt, you want to be able to know like how deep you can get into things and still pull it back. You know, so like we always want to train safe, and we always want to you know, be good to our partners and things like that. But as a competitor, especially an upper level competitor, and this is one thing I remember Haji Racy talking about a while back. He says that sometimes you have to get with your good partners that you really trust, and you have to train hard, and you have to get deep into positions, because as a competitor, you need to know how deep you can get in the hole, or how far out on the branch. He used the example of climbing out on the limb, how far out on the limb you can go, and get yourself back without breaking it, right? And that's important for chokes. Sometimes, especially in the early stages, when I'm watching young competitors, a lot of times they tap a little early to chokes. They could have fought a little harder. You know, they weren't quite in. They kind of gave up a little early. And if you want to be a top level competitor, that's something that you might be interested in finding out about yourself, you know, at some point, you know, for sure, right? I definitely don't recommend it too early. We definitely want to be training safe, but as a competitor, because I know this is kind of geared towards Daniela, because she kind of talked about when you abandon. You know, and I know that she's hardcore. She wants to be a hardcore competitor. One of those things is you got to know how deep you can dig the hole and climb yourself out, you know, before, you know, you get hurt, or before like you go to sleep. You know, and that happens in the training room, but you got to have partners you trust, and it goes back to like what we said, the environment is everything. You got to have a good environment around you. You got to have people that you can trust, because you really are trusting people with your well-being and your health, man. You know, you can't just be in a room, a bunch of people that don't care about you, and think that you're going to be able to learn like these, how far you can go safely. It's scary. Right?
How long have we been going?
Oh, we're at 05 now.
All right, I think that we'll wrap it up. Is there anything?
No, Lucas said something about inverted heel hooks, so I'm not going to even
Lucas-
bring that up.
Lucas and Charlie are calling each other to troll us.
And Cody says, how long does it take to lose ego? It's going to take him a while, I'm assuming.
And Shihan's answer.
Yeah. How long have you been training, Shehan? Shehan still has his. So.
Oh, boy, about 3 years now. Jesus.
Longer than 3 years, Cody.
All
All right,
right,
we're done?
That's it, guys.
Hey, just want to say thanks for everybody for watching. Thank you for the continued support. You know, it's day-to-day stuff here. You know, we're just kind of watching. The governor comes out every day and kind of tells us, you know, what we can and can't do as far as opening the doors. I'm sure Professor has more to say about that. But we appreciate you guys. Continued support, tuning in, stick with us. We're going to be here when this junk is all over. We'll make it through.
Better than ever.
Better than ever.
Better than ever. Working a lot of stuff here. Taking advantage of the downtime for sure. All right, guys. So, barring anything changes, we'll see you next Wednesday. Woo! Bye. All right.